So they'll be calling you a radical. First off, congratulations to Oral Roberts, Steve Nash. But this is important because, and we'll talk Mark Hoffman, we'll talk FOMK Brody, we'll talk, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, Napoleon Dynamite, it's a masterpiece. So he did all his work here. That's where he did it. Melvin Dumar forged Howard Hughes' will here. I used to talk to Hoffman right here. I used to visit with him all the time. So the reason I'm going to tie this to Fukushima, so was Hoffman trying to commit suicide. So the nuclear energy crime city, and if I was a politician in Utah right now, by the and Kevin Blanch's evidence, I'd be one nervous fucker right now. You know, the Cleveland office busting them, but it's going to start to spread. So in Ohio, the nuclear energy bribe, you know, you're all wound up about Status King Cuomo. And I want to tell people this, what they've done to YouTube turned it into cable TV. If you're contemporizing, who gives a shit? What this form is like a good, you know, you're doing postgraduate work. And you're digging through the research library like Hoffman did, like I've done, trying to find something. And somebody, some good research PhD, there it is. Thank you. You know, I used to say, you know, the Brownies used to police this thing. They didn't want anybody writing a PhD on those crooked fucking war profiteers from hell. You know, and I know them all still. They're here. Ooh, creepy, creepy, creepy. Sold to both sides. But anyway, so in Ohio, now this is important because Bud Dwyer, and if you don't know who Bud Dwyer is, and somebody got me going because he commented, and I remember, oh, I'm like, oh my God. Bud Dwyer, and don't look it up online. Do not look it up online because it's on YouTube. He was doing a press conference. He'd been charged. He was the, you know, Attorney General in the Controller, the Treasurer in, excuse me, the State Treasurer in Pennsylvania. This is in 3 Mile Island area. And he blew his head off at a press conference on camera, live TV. And don't look it up. It's way disturbing. So why is that significant? Because in Ohio, he's just done, and the crazy thing is this lobbyist politician looks just like Dwyer. I mean, they look a lot alike. They have the same MO. They have the same background, the same creepy. My point is, he was nuclear energy crime syndicate, just like Dwyer. I mean, people talk about the public employees fund that he was robbing. It tied to 3 Mile Island. The only time that they got around the Immunity Act, which is Price Anderson, that I fought my whole life, was that situation. It ties into the nuclear. I'm telling you, there's always more to these stories, just like Hoffman. You know, Hoffman found, did he just do his forgeries in there? Well, I think he learned to do them in there. Well, he learned from a kid, but he found real documents. You know, why doesn't somebody go ask him? So, was he trying to kill himself? FOMK, bro, there should be a statue of fun. And this is important. This is historic, you know, and for this university and for everybody. You know, they blackballed me. Oh, look what they did to her. What this documentary does, it cements in concrete, gilds in gold, that FOMK Brody had nothing to do with Mark Hoffman's work, which we've always known that. You know, this is the spin that the Mormon Church has tried to put on. This university was started by the Mormon Church, of course. I get that, but come on, it's a public university. You know, where's the separation of state? Church and state. This isn't BYU private. By the way, they're a good team, not like, oh, fuck, those choke artists, Utah State. Fuck, they're worse than this choke artist fucking team. Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Fuck, they haven't won a tournament game until they got blown out. So, March Madness on Balco on chemo. Stay with me, and I want you to look up, because he was getting ready to go down. And was he talking? Was he squinting? Publicly. He just walked down the road in Florida. Blew his head off. He was going down because the nuclear industry, just like they did in New York, $7.6 billion. They did in Utah, new scale from hell. They just come in and the thing that's crazy about this, they bust Larry in Ohio. You know, he's a criminal derelict. Ohio wants to keep him in office. Why he's in prison? Of course, look what they did in San Diego. You think they're crazy? How about Duncan Hunter? Duncan Hunter's rabbit ivory. He used to haul his rabbit around with a first-class seat. He'd buy his rabbit a first-class seat. You know, him and his wife would take her to, you know, swinger-type parties, which I think she was the only one swinging. And so, by the way, Trump pardoned him. So, back to Fawn. This is important in Hoffman. This is a historical document that he has done. It's a masterpiece. You know, people that grew up here, Sandy used to run the library. She lived next door to the Sheets when I had her. You know, we all know these people personally. So Rust, I know really well. His kid, the Perpetual Life, his son just pled guilty off to prison, Russ Coyne, you know, historic, for these layers of crimes for $200 million Ponzi scheme in the silver. I mean, they're going on, you know, unbelievable. So Fawn. You Google it. Oh, Hoffman read Fawn McKay Brody's book. Well, Hoffman was a genius. And I mean, you're talking one of the biggest geniuses in history. Taught himself as a kid how to beat a polygraph. The guy in the documentary says that he got the highest positive score on a polygraph test in his long FBI career. This is how genius this dude was. I mean, you watch his talking and it just shows you the genius of Mark Hoffman. Incredible what he was able. But I know he found real documents. Did Hinckley buy them? I used to know Gordon Hinckley very personally because, you know, Hinckley Auto, all these things. He owned all these buildings, this real estate. Still does. You know, out there at the old Wilshire Theater, that was their cattle herd out there. You know, beyond rich. And don't get me going on that CIA, ABC, you know, Orwellian. I grew up with the Hinkleys. I grew up with the Brownings. I grew up with the Eccles. I knew Mariner personally. He used to call me, by the way, I love Gordon Hinckley. He was so nice to me. You know, he was always good to me. I did all the plaster work on his buildings, whatever. But did he buy documents and destroy them? Do they have them? You know, the worm around is the hierarchy letter. Not the salamander letter. Not the White Horse Prophecy Romney. The hierarchy letter that Joseph Smith left that the church goes to his son's son. Emma Smith said that. And, you know, in the script, Dr. Azari, I mean, it was not a king. It was a commoner. It blows it all to hell, doesn't it? Improvident genius is all Fawn said. Fawn McKay Brody was the greatest research historian in history. How about a 16-year-old professor in that era in the United States? Weber State. Well, they've blackballed Watt, speaking of basketball. The first player of color in the history of the NBA won 2 national championships at Weber State. Oh, just JC. Oh, okay. By the way, Arnie Farron is still alive. We love him. You know, he ran the NCAA forever. Ogden High. You know, Vern Garner. You know, Watt. These Ogden birds. By the way, the University of Utah hasn't won a... Weber State, I mean, this used to be the powerhouse of basketball. What happened? I don't know. Same with the Jazz won't win it. Steeping at basketball, and Brooklyn Nets probably win it. Steve Nash. I was at that game. I have that programming ticket. Woo-hoo. So back to Fawn, back to this. It ties in again. I mean, he blew his head off. Just like he did. They always nail the bribees, not the bribers. Why is not the new scale right here? I mean, in Utah, if I was a freaking politician, right, I'd be so nervous. Kevin Blanch, I'm the one that exposed that the original grant, that was under the Obama administration, was a scam. It was called Kenwood Financial. That crooked up there at New Scale, who's head of the NRC. I mean, talk about a criminal. You know, Jose Reyes, but all these politicians that took bribes. I know for a fact they took bribes. That money's already been coming out of our billing apps. That was never set up for nuclear little... it's a sham. It's corruption. Status King Cuomo in New York should go down for the women? No, how about the $7.6 billion he stole? So back to Fawn, the investigative journalist. She's the greatest female writer in American history. I mean, Jefferson's biography is an absolute masterpiece. You know, she says all these politicians, Burgess Owens. I mean, God, don't he get me going on that dude. By the way, he has a biology degree, and I'm gonna have a conversation with him. Yeah, he got elected here. You know, the old Jets player. Youngest female professor in the history of the state. By the way, Mae Blanche is my auntie, you know. God, she was so great. I knew Fawn personally. She was not controversial. She did not challenge the Mormon theology. You know, her book, all she did was expose David O. McKay's niece. Her mother was Fawn Brimhall, President Brimhall. You know, I'm the Hunsaker line, Abe the 4th. He would have been 3rd president. You go up to the cemetery, there's snow buried right in Abe 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I can get into that. He had girls, my mom, all 3 girls. So, Fawn, there should be a statue right here. Until there is, I'm going to be pissed, and I'm going to keep raising hell around here. First female dean of history, born and raised right here. The who's who champion at Weber High, Kevin Blanche, Weber High. 16-year-old, I think she graduated at Weber State when she was 16, 17. Female professor at that age, and her Freudian writing style. You ever read any books? Read Nixon's biography. Don't read that one she wrote about the weapons with Brody. That thing's horrible. She told her whole husband, she says, after, you know, doing all my, she was a historian. She did so much heavy research forever and ever and ever. So was Hoffman. Hoffman was a genius, was a fucking genius. He was a historian, and this place, the special collection's been in disarray for decades, a joke. So many people have special, I mean, the activists and the people that were in here, you know, Edward Abbey, I can go on and on and on and on. You know, it's been written that Wolfgang Gossett, I don't believe that story that he was DB, but, you know, who am I to know? Hoffman, I used to talk to him right here all the time. Oh, he did research because I watched him, because I was doing research. Did he find real documents? If anybody would have, it would have been him. He is a fucking genius, an incredible genius that took the quantum leap and became a fucking killer. I mean, which was a whole, I mean, with malice, a cold-blooded, heartless killer. You know, Lafferty brothers, Ron died, you know about that heinous crime here. All of these roads lead to Ogden, the Allreds, the Shanoffs, you know. Ted Bundy used to walk around right over there. He pulled his car. Let me go right over here. I remember my cousin, Linda, she's so beautiful. Says she was standing right there. She was going to school here. And right there she pulled up right there and tried to talk her into getting in. She says, I almost got in with him. You know, so all roads lead here. But Fawn was the heavy research PhD. I mean, talk about research. I mean, she flew. She'd go through, and that's another thing with the obituaries. People aren't putting their deaths in urgent. And by the way, Pam Malin died, and there is nobody, probably in the history, well, one of them in the history of this city, more Ogden than her, Malin's Peak. I mean, so beautiful, so incredible. I loved her. I talked to her at the hospital here just recently, you know, and her heart failed. Young. She's so beautiful, so, I mean, tragic. I mean, she knew all these stories, you know. So many great old Ogdenites, and that whole culture. Ogden was such a gem with, you know, people that questioned. I mean, it was the Ogden way. I mean, he started out as a currency. They were flag burners here. Their own currency, the Mormon coins. I mean, he started forging currencies as a young boy. You know, it ties into Rust. It ties into the Miller family taking a basketball. You know, the Black murder. The Christensen painting that showed up, the one that's missing, you know. Can you imagine what that was worth? Showed up at the bookstore. You know, Ken Sanders is in it. Ken Sanders is a freaking genius. And I mean a genius. A lot of them, they're running out. Fawn McKay Brody says, no, he didn't have 4 wives. He had 47. Including, you know, she just listed their names and their addresses, and she went and, it was not hyperbole, she did the research. She just proved it all. You know, she didn't go after the theology. You know, she didn't produce the salamander. She did talk about DNA, but that was her gig. She was hypothesizing DNA before there was any DNA. She was hypothesizing Jefferson. So many of these politicians are his line. He was sleeping his black slaves by the hundreds, if not thousands. That's what he did, drink wine, sleep with his slaves. And his offspring, he has tens of thousands of offsprings of people of color, including probably Jesse. She hypothesized that before, and she was right. You know, she did all these things. She says, well, I would leave him. He charmed me just doing research on it. But she did all the heavy research. And then she wrote. You know, Rachel Carson on Balco. I mean, more than that. She's the greatest historian, the greatest female writer in American history, besides maybe the Gimlet girls. Well, I even put her up above those. And she didn't question, and the Mormon Church agrees with everything she said. So why the fuck are they still blackballing her? Well, why are they still blackballing Watt? First player of color in the history of the NBA, played here. He played here. 2 national champions. 5'7" jump hook. Fuck, was he good. You know, and that go from here to the University of Utah. Well, that was the path in those days. I mean, come on. So the documentary, the Mormon Murder, is a masterpiece, by the way. Thank you. By the way, if you've never seen Napoleon Dynamite, culturally, anybody that grew up here and anybody that lives here, we all get it. I mean, it brought back so many beautiful memories on when we had really fantastic, good journalists, when KSL was the shit. Dick Norris, Shelley Thomas, they were fantastic. You know, Bruce Lindsay when he was young, all these young, I mean, you get to see all these great young journalists that were here when KSL was still so good. Now they're fucking completely pathetic. I call them a terrorist organization. They go from, you know, people like Dick Norris to Doug Wright. Oh, fuck. Don't even get me going. It's disgusting. Rush Limbaugh, CIA. So did Hinckley buy them? I think so. I'd like to go. One day I hope I get into prison and can go ask Mark. Somebody. So the Laffertys, you know, in 2015, you know about the Shiloh, the 13-story building down there when that crazy threw all his kids off. I was in Salt Lake that day. I, you know, was doing all the work on the church office buildings. I restored all that concrete and it was all busted up. I knew, you know, I was connected. My family, Mormon socialist. I knew Spencer Kimmel really well. I liked him. He was nice to me, really nice to me. I knew David O. McKay personally. I knew Fong personally, you know. Fantastic Mormon socialists. Why is there not a fucking statue of her right here? Damian Lillard, the most famous, but fuck, he ain't even close. Fuck, another choke artist. Sorry, Damian, I love you, but come on. You're up by 20 fucking points in Big Sky Championship game in law. I know it ain't your fault. I love you, Damian. Strike that. 15 seed, Randy Ray, who coaches here, says, I says, how come you couldn't beat that Xavier team? Or you got such a slow... Oh, they were just too good. 15s beat 2 seeds. Hopefully Eastern Washington can do it tonight. Whoever's got talent always does, but they can't win. It's got a curse. This is where he did all the work. I see him right here. By the way, this place is so incredible. This university is so fucking incredible. The landscape would take your breath away. I've been here my whole life. My whole life. I mean, you want to talk a lifetime of research, I'm walking, talking, because that's all I do. My whole life, I love it. I've always loved it since I was a kid. You know, the hawk and trowel. I was in New York as a derivative arbitrage specialist. You know, the dynamics of Kevin Blanche. I mean, I've been at this. So he blows his head off. He's going to prison. He took the bribe. Why doesn't the nuclear, you know, Bud Dwyer, it's the new Bud Dwyer. I'll tag it that Bud Dwyer. But to the Mormon Church, I spoke at the symposium here quite a few years ago. And I'm a member of the BYU historian says, well, Kevin Blanche is right. Why are we denying our socialistic roots? We go from the socialists here, the Mormon with their own currency, with the, I mean, you go to ZCMI down here in Ogden, my twin sister worked there. You know, that food market, the candy. What a place. You know, Russ is all over on that. His son, $200 million Ponzi scheme. I mean, come on. The Miller family, they erased the Walker Mansion. Yeah, the Walkers are from here. The Walker Bank, I videoed down there where they tore off the beautiful marble and they put this ugly fake stuck on it just recently. Yeah, that's the Walker Bank here. The savings and loan scandal, I wrote my master thesis when I was finance on that then. You know, here. You know. So the Miller boy changes his name to Brilliant Miller. I mean, they're douchebags. They're creeps. The Black murder is the Miller's mother-in-law. 10 years later, this kid, did somebody pay him to do it? I mean, the Christensen Payne shows up. You know, these currencies, these rare books, these rare coins. You know what a first edition Book of Mormon goes for? You know how many of them freaking used to lay in there? First edition. No man knows my history. I say Kevin Blanche. All men know my history. I mean, people, Hoffman knew. Hoffman was a fucking genius. You're talking one of the best, most genius people in history. The greatest forger in America. No doubt, no doubt. And this ties into the nuclear, and this is important. Because how did he pull it off? All the Wilfer, the broker in New York, the brokers here, this tragic he murdered Christensen. The Christian, wants to come across like, oh, he was going to donate doing it for the church. No, Christian was in it for the money, and Hoffman fucked him. He was pissed. And then Hoffman takes that quantum leap to be a fucking cold-blooded fucking murderer. Did he commit suicide? Well, Bud Dwyer, we know who did that, but how come we always go after the bribe, not the bribers, the enablers? Put a fucking statue of Fawn right here. This documentary proves Hoffman fucking, he read Fawn McKay Brody's book on his mission, and he became just, he was forging shit when he was a fucking 10-year-old kid and pulling it off. You watch, you're talking one of the fucking, what a fucking genius. It's too bad that this is what he did with it, fucking committed murder, but, I mean, Ted Bundy was no fucking idiot. Dangerous people. That's who the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate. So when they authenticated the first printed, people had to know. I mean, he was turning up a new document every fucking day. 1.5 million he was going to get. I'll split it with you. Who'd they send it to? Berkeley. To the Nano Lab. To the Livermore. To the nuclear industry. Yeah, they have this great nano. So how they do that is they use nanotechnology that goes back to background level. So you can only do that up to really the 1930s. There was some messing around with nuclearism that got into the biosphere. But the bomb, 1945, my grandson got a hold of the paper crane this year, out there, Sudoku, folding paper cranes. Actually, I got a hold of they presented one to Kevin Blanche. Why I got leukemia. I'll tell you how Utah I am. I'll tell you how fucking, you go ask him in there when I fucking stagger through here about dead. I'm so fucking Utah, 7th generation. Ike Potter himself, that's my line, 1822. Abe and Ike's granddaughter married each other. That's my grandpa and grandma. My residency on my social media sites used to show up as the East State LDS bone marrow transplant. I spent over 5 years till Mike Lee kicked me out Medicaid there, in the same fucking room that Mark Hoffman fucking recovered in. Same, we used to joke about it in there. I was in there when the Stewart thing, when I leaked everything on the San Onofre that's me. I did from the LDS East State bone marrow transplant. Filmed with Peterson from Denmark. This documentary proves that he was up to it at a very fucking young age. Had nothing to do with Fawn. Fawn's book is not anti-Mormon. Fawn's book, she goes into the DNA on natives. Look, it's real simple. The DNA, the natives, it blows off this, lost tribe thesis of the Mormons. They're Asian descent. They're Chinese. Just historical fact that facts are facts are facts. So the Bud Dwyer, the new one, if I was a Utah politician, I'd be a nervous fucker. I think the FBI is going to bust them all on this new scale. They've looted $400 million. I videoed them right in there. Inside the State House, I've done so much. It's so corrupt, it's unbelievable. Lead Dog Hedge Fund, fucking Kenwood Financial, the whole grant under the Trump administration, under the Obama is so corrupt. Fukushima. One day you'll wake up and realize Fukushima, my work, is the greatest PhD in human history. The Hoffman documentary proves that Fawn had nothing to do with that. Fawn's work is she's a historian, the greatest. Give her her respect. Give her her dues. This old Ogden was so full of great people like that when I was young. They questioned, the Mormon currency. These people were flag burners. They hated this. They still called it Deseret when I was a kid. Hardcore Mormon socialist here. Everyone, you redistributed. My grandfather ran the welfare farms, So, you got to watch it. Thank you for making it. And what it does, it says just what I've always said. Get rid of your fucking lying bullshit. he was the Mormon historian, is in there, and I don't like that dude at all. Wrigley, I can't stand him. You know, the Great Mormon Empire, when he wrote that, he's from Idaho. He's a fucking horrible writer, by the way. He's the one that swapped over Mormon history. It's bullshit. Merlin Jensen was on this campus. What a fucking great Mormon story. He tried to fix that. The president of the Mormon Church is from here, and I know him. The heart surgeon, Thomas, my uncle, he and I, they worked together. They were fucking Mormon socialists. Why do you deny it? And now it's worship the golden calf. They're the opposite of all teachings of Jesus Christ. By the way, that's written into the Mormon theology. That's called the White Horse Prophecy. There'll come a time in this country when people will worship false prophets, including our religion. This is Joseph Smith's own words. It's called the White Horse Prophecy. And people in hairspray, he even called it out, the Whigs, he'd call it, will completely take over our religion. Politically, our religion, and they will not be. They'll be Satan. They'll be Satan false prophets. Our Lord and Savior Trumpism. And a Mormon will run for president, become president, and save the country. That time's here. And that has nothing to do with religious bias, the salamander letter, all that. Is there a real salamander? I have no idea. I don't question the foundation. I know the burial script was fake. That's unarguable now. The burial script was not a king. It was a commoner, which a lot of Mormons have left because of that. Because it shows Joseph Smith's incredible, long, Human thumbing on chemo, But I don't get into that whole, the Mormons could pivot. I don't get into the basis. It really, the eclectic religion. When we were kids, we were taught that the Muslims were like us. The Mormons acted like the Muslims, and we were like in symphony with each other. The Prophet Muhammad, all of it. The Mormon women dressed like that, and then you'd have this is the 60s and 70s, the long-dressed Mormon girls with, then right next to them, girls in bikinis in class. San Francisco had nothing on Ogden, Utah, yet you had all the fundamentalists here, and they were mixed together. Fuck, what a time. Oh my God. What a fucking time. Oh, sexual? Oh, fucking organic? Fucking crazy. What a cultures clashing together, mixing together, but they were all together. They were socialists. Fucking drinking. This was so fucking wild, you don't even want to believe. Like I said, growing up here, San Francisco had nothing on this fucking town. Nothing. I remember Mayor Dirks wasted all the time. Fucking give a speech. Fuck DUI. There was no such thing. Drinking in public was encouraged. It was crazy. The sexual consent was 14. I remember at Walkwest Junior High, half the fucking 8th grade was pregnant by 35-year-old rich guys and pull up and fucking, the whole culture was nuts. It was wilder than hell. No righty had a chance running for office here. In the whole state, they were all blue. Really to the left. You couldn't get more to the left, including the Mormons. And so, now look at them. Worship the golden calf. Hate thy neighbor. Covet thy neighbor's fucking Walmart goods. Jesus Christ. Feed the afflicted. Heal the afflicted. Feed the poor. Sounds like a fucking socialist to me. Get rid of your personal possessions. Become Christ-like. The craftsman. Kevin Blanch, the craftsman. Be Christ-like, we were taught. Like the real one. Get rid of your selfishness. Become unselfish. That's how we were taught. I still believe in it. So, it has nothing to do with your son of God. It's just the activists, the radical with the whip and the fucking throwing the money changers out of the temple. So, I know it's a long video. Put a statue of Fawn right here. This documentary proves. She had nothing to do with Hoffman. Hoffman, a genius? Holy fuck. I used to stand right here and talk to him. So unassuming. Never believe he'd be a killer. I was working in the church office buildings. I was doing all that concrete in the bottom the day that he fucking blew up. That's where I was working then. I restored all that concrete. I was in there for fucking a long time. 2-3 years I was in there. And, doing my research here. Fuck my lifetime of this. So, the new Dwyer. They'll go after the bribees, but not the bribers, because the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate, and just think, they dated the Hoffman document with nanotechnology and verified it was real. Berkeley, Livermore, with their spectrometer, their nuclear, that just shows you what a fraud they fucking... There's a new Blanche particle been identified at Fukushima. By the way, the documentary Frontline, this is important. Not a word about USS Reagan. Hasn't killed... Oh, fuck. It's a half-truth. It's a black and yellow journalism. That's how they play. So, he's killed himself. You know, was he getting ready to talk? Huh. Ties right into Bud. You can't make it up. It's 3 Mile Island on Balco. You know, the bribery, the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate, which is this university. This is the University of General Electric. How do you think the Hinkley's made all their fucking money? Stay tuned.